In 1965, I was 8 years old. 8 years old. And in 1965, I had a great uncle, my grandfather's brother-in-law, who lived down the road. Remember, I lived on a street for a mile. I was related to everybody. My great uncle, born in 1900, at the age of 18 in 1918, was drafted during World War I. Yes, World War I. And I remember a conversation I had with him. He used to tell some amazing stories. He would tell the story of the first phone that was installed in his house. He talked about the story of buying one of the first radios in Canton Township. And he would go on and on and on about talking about installing the first indoor plumbing. Yes, those were big things in his life, not to mention beating the Kaiser in World War I. And after listening to my great uncle talk for enough, I sighed, my God, what an old fogey. Doesn't he have anything to say about today? Everything he's talking about is from the distant past. Well, what goes around comes around. Because a couple of Sundays ago, I met my cousin Lorraine, who has all the cousins over, including my great niece. And my great niece is 8 years old. Yes. And tomorrow I will turn 65, the same age as my great uncle was when I was 8 years old. And she, well, thank you. Thank you. Very kind. And she was playing this game on her phone, little 8-year-old just going to town. I said, you know, I could never really figure all those things out. And she said, well, that's because you're a boomer, Uncle Joe. A boomer. A boomer? I'm a baby boomer. My dad fought in World War II, and I was born in 57, which makes me a baby boomer. It's true. I thought that's what she meant. That's not what she meant. I'm smart enough to know how to use Google, and I Googled it. That's not exactly what the young people mean when they call you boomer. That means you're an old fogey who doesn't understand what's going on in the modern world. The same idea I had of my great uncle when I was 8 years old and he was 65. What goes around comes around. And if it was possible to have my great uncle come down from heaven and stand on one side of me or sit down at a table, and my little great niece, the four of us would have so many different things to share about how life was and how life changes. Clothing styles change, haircuts change, provided you still have hair. You know, all kinds of technologies change in many, many different ways. A lot of changes take place. But I am absolutely certain that my great uncle and my great niece and myself, which is 120 years, you know, if you take that span, it's 122 years of spans, would agree that what doesn't change is the need to love. What doesn't change is the need to be cared for. What doesn't change is the need to be concerned about your fellow person. That the gifts of the Holy Spirit and all of their totality are ways that we express our love for others. That hasn't changed since God created the world. It's the same message preached at Pentecost 2,000 years ago, and it's the same message today. We may look different, dress different, drive around differently, but we all need to love, because we all need love. So on this Pentecost, we're reminded to open our hearts and selves even more fully to God's love, so that despite the changes we may see in the future, that love will forever guide us in how we react to one another, and most importantly, how we arrive in the heavenly kingdom.